Now, what I'm hoping is that people can see the presentation. So I'm Martin, and I'm lucky enough to be presenting today with Devin Rasher from the Sheldon Schumer, and she's going to introduce herself a little bit more. I also wanted to give some acknowledgements right off the bat so I don't forget to. The project that I'm talking about has been done in conjunction with the Provincial Occupational Therapy Provincial Practice Council, and there's been a committee there that's been really, really helpful with me on this project, and that was Carmen Lazarek, Deb Fraze, Jeff Meyer, and Stephen Seibald. And Stephen is from the Health Professions Strategy and Practice group. They are the education group for allied health there. And then also the way I've met Devin is through the Provincial Mental Health Promotion Team. And we're going to talk initially about behavioral activation and then a bit about the wellness exchange. And that is, that's where that comes from, is the Provincial Mental Health Promotion Team. So hoping that everything is okay. And so, yeah, I work in Northern Alberta. I'm in the Assertive Outreach team, and sorry, that was the acknowledgements. I'm moving on. So one of the things that I've been working on is this OT and depression project, and we focused on physical rehabilitation and the ways that occupational therapists can address depression with clients that they're working with. And this was part of the orientation, the discipline-specific orientation. And we talked about assessment, therapeutic alliance, behavioral activation, problem solving. And today we're just going to cover the behavioral activation part of that, and actually just to sum up the behavioral activation part of that, so that you'll have some time to see the wellness exchange materials, which is very important. And Devin will be talking more about the wellness exchange. So, yeah, so I'll focus on the behavioral activation. Devin's going to talk about the wellness exchange and specifically about the positive activities part of that. And then we're going to have a chance to take some time to, we won't use the breakout is my understanding, but we will have some time to actually use some of the tools that are available in the wellness exchange. And these are the tools that would be relevant to behavioral activation. So what do OTs think about depression? So we basically believe that participation in meaningful occupation is central to an individual's wellness, well-being and health, and that activities that we enjoy that are meaningful to us make us healthier. So occupation-based practices are client-centered, they focus on meaningful occupation, and they result in this improved health. And so the case that I was attempting to make, I guess I should have given some acknowledgement to the fact that I'm on a doctoral degree at Kansas University Medical Center, and this is actually part of my, my final research project there. And so the case that I was making was that behavioral activation offers good tools for OTs to use when our clients experience depression. So this is a couple of definitions that relate to depression that come from the behavioral activation literature. Behavioral activation is based on the behavioral model and views depression as an understandable response to negative life events, stressors, and difficult environments. And that the goal of behavioral activation is to produce contact with diverse, stable sources of positive reinforcement and create a life with meaning and purpose. And I just think, you know, this is language that occupational therapists might use when they're thinking about occupation-centered practice. So all of us have the experience that when we're unwell, we are more likely to spend time in bed, isolate ourselves socially, and restrict our participation in our usual daily activities. And we can call these behaviors kind of depression activities. And engaging in these depression activities can cause us to have lower mood, and that in turn can lead to more depressing activities, and that can cause this downward trend towards depression. One of the things that certainly I hadn't thought a lot about as an OT until I started reading more about behavioral activation was this idea of the role of avoidance. And so in this case, we can think about depression as how avoidance impacts our behavior. So let's say in this case, the individual has lost their job, they look in the classifieds, they feel sadness, they cry, and they experience these negative thoughts and anxiety. And so the avoidance pattern, staying in bed, reduces contact with the trigger, unsuccessfully looking for work, and the distress that results. So it's more likely that we'll stay in bed. And when we're analyzing the activity patterns of the individual, this seems helpful to me to begin to think more, and I know that clinically I begin to think more about what is the individual avoiding and what is the function of the behavior. So in contrast, when we participate in these meaningful, pleasurable activities, we can call these antidepressive activities, our mood can potentially be improved. And behavioral activation is about supporting the client to recognize that successfully participating in meaningful activities raises behavioral activities, helps them to recognize that successful participating in meaningful activities will raise their mood, decrease depression symptoms. And so by encouraging our clients to participate in these activities, by planning, and this is important, it's not acting as you feel, but rather planning an activity that intentionally to address the decreased mood. And so mood might begin to improve. And in this way, we can see how this affective component restricts participation. So in behavioral activation, the client's supported in monitoring their activity patterns. And these are things that are familiar, well, certainly were familiar to me as an OT when I began to work in mental health. So we have our clients write down the patterns that of their daily activity routines. We identify activities that they did in the last day, rate their mood while participating. The rating of the mood was something that I had to kind of learn a little bit more about as I worked in mental health. This idea that making the connection between certain activities and elevated or improving mood. Once the client's attention is drawn to the relationship between mood and participation in these meaningful, pleasurable activities, then the client has this potential to begin to more intentionally include positive activities. The client chooses a potential pleasurable activities list by identifying activities they've done in the past or activities that they want to do in the future. They make goals for participation, and sometimes just the simple act of beginning to plan activity is enough. And so people will begin to recognize that they can make some changes. But sometimes the functional analysis will need to be more in depth. So we might have a client who chooses too big of goals, or who's often through that's probably the biggest problem. Through that, maybe keeps getting negative feedback about participation. So we really just need to do the activity analysis here with them. So, but it's not a lost cause if a person struggles with participating in the pleasurable activities. Because each cycle of attempting hopefully helps you to refine your analysis and the level of support that the individual is needing. But always, and I get this from Randy Patterson. I don't know who's managed to take one of his courses, but his was like, no, you take full responsibility. If the participation does not occur, you accept that you did not encourage them to set the goal at an appropriate level to guarantee success. So we draw the client's attention to the way that pleasurable activities might improve their mood already. So they might have experiences of mood going up and down, but I don't know what other people's experience with clients, but it's still people are robbed of this positive influence of positive activity by their depression. And so it really is important to very intentionally notice that if they stay in bed and isolate themselves, that they do feel lower, and that it may be like someone came over and they socialized, that they actually did feel a little better. And so like really trying to get their attention focused on this. The client is supported in exploring their current pattern of activity, remember a pattern of activity that was less depressing, and then participation goals are established. And whoops, sorry. Control my mouse. There we go. So then the client supports the client in breaking down activity goals, so will be successful in achieving the goals. And this hopefully leads to successful participation. Successful or not, participation is analyzed and the cycle is repeated. So the client is supported in planning and scheduling activities. You might want to use written forms, and I really like some of the ones that Devin's going to show us, to assist the client to document participation and attend to their success. Documentation, I'll repeat this, of mood ratings supports a client in tracking changes in their mood and in noticing the relationship between participation and improved mood. That's one of the things that just really isn't a given. And if we don't really support the client in getting that relationship, it's very hard for you know, when you're feeling very depressed, it's very hard to get yourself out of bed and go do stuff, basically. And then people might have other experiences like, you know, social anxiety or some other good reason why they would be avoiding participating in things that they enjoy. So we want that to support the clients in overcoming these barriers. And so one of the, I'll just give you a little example. Clinical practice, someone said, I'm going to plant my flower beds this week, my flower baskets this week. And I was like, wow, planting 5 flower baskets. This was a woman who had won the Communities in Bloom Award once, you know, so I was like, okay, there's a bit of risk here of over enthusiasm. So maybe planting, you know, the bedding plants might be a little too much, but I helped her to figure out what it was she needed. So we made a list: soil, basket, bedding plants, space, tools. We planned for a time when someone else might be able to give her a hand. That was something she hadn't thought about. So, you know, some of that pleasurable feedback. And then, yeah, then in the end, she was able to cut the activity down quite dramatically. And so we got really specific. So this is the SMART goals, which I think Devin will also reference. But, you know, so setting goals to the client's a major step. We have to be able to predict success. And the main barrier is the client's expectations are too great. So the woman wanted to plant all of those flower pots. And it would be better for her to set maybe 25 goals of planting a single bedding plant rather than 5 baskets full. In the end, I'll just give you the final SMART goal, which was specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and trackable. I'd like to plant 1 petunia in one of my baskets by the end of the weekend with the help of my granddaughter and take a photo for Facebook. And so we managed to get the plant, you know, Communities in Bloom volume down to something that was likely to be successful. Reinforcement matters. So I don't know if in OT we always think about reinforcement or what it is about activities that engages people so that they want to participate in them. But in behavioral terms, it works because the client focuses on the way that we are motivated to participate in activities. Depression steals motivation. So we want to plan with the clients to improve the motivation by maximizing the qualities of the activity that are most reinforcing for the client. I have a sensory integration background. I was a children's therapist for many years. And so like I can really think sensory here and think about what it is about the activity that we can enhance, that we can think about, that really fits for that client in terms of why they love that activity, why participating in it matters. And back to that idea of like social engagement, often having someone who will witness participation, who will be able to be that, you know, when the depression like kind of robs you of motivation, will be able to provide that external stimuli that says, yes, you know, you were successful. And then simple systems for documenting. Whatever people pay attention to, they're more likely to do. And so if they're able to write, even just like a tick box, you make the tick box for them, whatever, so that they are most likely in a simple way to document their success in their participation. It's very meaningful. Yeah. That's really me. My conclusion, this behavioral activation and occupational therapy is just a great combination. And so I really, I look forward to continuing to work within the profession to build this link between behavioral activation and occupational therapy. And now I think it's Devin's turn. So I think we didn't talk about this part. What do I have to do?
Thanks, Martin. So you just have to stop sharing your screen, and then I can share mine. There we go. All right, let me just get my PowerPoint up here. Okay, can everybody see that?
I think people are saying yes.
Okay, good, great. Well, hi, everybody. My name is Devin Racher. Thank you, Martin, for inviting me to join you for this presentation. I'm an occupational therapist based out of Calgary. I've worked in mental health for the last 10 years. I'm currently with a program called Urgent Mental Health Outreach, and we operate out of downtown Calgary, primarily working with people experiencing homelessness or who have frequent interactions with crisis services. So that's kind of the context of where I'm coming from, but I'm here to tell you about Wellness Exchange today, which is a health promotion group program that emphasizes behavior activation techniques to build skills for managing during stressful times. I've been a facilitator for Wellness Exchange groups for the past 3 years. We used to run them in person downtown in Calgary, primarily with people experiencing homelessness. But since the pandemic, we've kind of pivoted to running it online. So I'm really happy to tell you guys about the program today, and we're going to be specifically talking about one of the modules called positive activities, which most relates to behavior activation, though I would say every single one of the topics in some way relates to behavior activation as well. So just a little bit about the Wellness Exchange. So it was developed in 2016 by Alberta Health Services. So it was a partnership between my program, Urgent Mental Health Outreach, and with the Mental Health Promotion and Illness Prevention provincial team within AHS. So Wellness Exchange is based on a program called Skills for Psychological Recovery. So some of you may have heard of that program before, but what that is an evidence-based framework that is from the National Center for PTSD and National Child Traumatic Stress Network in the United States. So it's essentially a disaster response, one-on-one facilitated self-help program. So AHS basically got permission to adapt Skills for Psychological Recovery into a group format, and then the result was Wellness Exchange. So, it was originally designed for disaster response, so people that have been through fires, floods, losing your house, things like that, but it's definitely helpful for anybody who's going through a stressful time in their life. Just gonna take a drink of water. Excuse me. So Wellness Exchange, again, is the group version of SPR. And it is definitely health promotion material. So it's not considered mental health treatment in any way, but my program offers it once a week to basically anybody who wants to participate. So it is a 5-week group. It's based on the 6 skills in Skills for Psychological Recovery that we've basically compressed into 5 groups. It's a 1-hour group and we run it once per week. We used to run it in person. So we were actually running it downtown in Calgary with the homeless population. So anybody could drop in. It was totally flexible. It was, no registration required, not collecting any identifying information. It was just anybody who's interested could come and take part. We haven't been able to do that, unfortunately, during the pandemic. So we've switched to running it online. So now every Wednesday morning, I run Wellness Exchange online for people who want to tune in and participate. And again, Wellness Exchange really is about engaging people in playing a role in building their own resilience. So I would say every topic really does feature behavior activation in that it encourages people to take action. So these are the 5 topics of Wellness Exchange. So problem solving, positive activities, managing reactions, helpful thinking, and healthy connections. So we continually cycle through these topics every week on Wednesday morning. And people kind of end up dropping into any of the topics that's of interest to them. And what I really like about it is each topic stands alone. So you don't have to go to them in any particular order. People can just come to the one that interests them. So it's really designed to be very low barrier for anybody who wants to gain this information. And as I already mentioned, all of the topics really feature taking action to kind of build a plan for managing your own stress in your life. So that's just an overview of what Wellness Exchange is. So I'm going to now be talking about the positive activities group, which is most related to behavior activation. And what I'm going to do with the time we have remaining is actually run a modified version of this Wellness Exchange group with all of you guys right now. So I do this every week and I'm excited to do it with a new set of people. And this is actually my favorite topic of Wellness Exchange as an OT because it very much relates to our values. So for this group, you guys are going to need the handouts that we provided for you. So that's the pleasant activities list, the positive activities worksheet, and the SMART goals handout. So hopefully you have those ready and available. They have been made to be fillable, so you can just fill them out right on your computer, though some people prefer to print them out and to fill them out using a pen or a pencil. So whatever works for you today. All right, so we'll just get right into it. So we always start Wellness Exchange groups with a rationale for why do we talk about this topic? Why is this even included as part of the Wellness Exchange? So why are positive activities important? So despite the stress and chaos that we experience in life, positive activities provide us with opportunities for enjoyment. And this is especially important when you're going through a stressful time, when life seems out of control, because these activities help us feel connected to ourselves and to our values. And as Martin has already reviewed so nicely, positive activities play a huge role in improving our mood, increasing our sense of control over our life, and creating hope. So this is what we're going to be talking about as part of the positive activities module. So what are positive activities? We'll define them. Why are positive activities helpful? And then when are positive activities most helpful? When is it most important that we do them? And then you'll have an opportunity to fill out that positive activities worksheet that we mentioned already. So what are positive activities? So I know it's a lot of OTs in the audience, so this won't be new to many of you, but in Wellness Exchange, we define positive activities as those that create a sense of safety, connection with ourselves or with other people, a sense of meaning or purpose, a sense of control or hope. And so it's really anything that provides a benefit to you in those terms. Positive activities don't have to be complicated. They can be small, simple, free, and fun. An example for myself, working from home more these days, even just standing up from my desk and having a stretch is a positive activity that improves my mood. So we really like to emphasize that to folks, that it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be complicated. And as lots of OTs are in the audience, I know that you know that as well. So now I'd love to hear from you guys. So you can just type into the chat box. So we'll just start with the first question, and that is, what positive activities do you currently do or have you done in the past? I'm just going to read out some answers that I see as they come in. So we've got bike rides, making a nice cup of hot tea, listening to music, walks in nature, hiking, baking, yoga, rock climbing, partner dancing, podcasts. Oh gosh, this is so much more participation than I normally get. I know that I have an audience of OTs here. Meditation, hand embroidery, barre classes, learning a new language, walking. Fantastic. Thank you guys for all of those examples. So there's so many things that we do and that we know are important for our health and for our mood. So thank you guys for that. Let's go to the second question. And I'm just curious for all of you, how have recent events affected your engagement in positive activities? And, you know, we're kind of relating to the pandemic here. What have you noticed about the changes? So if you can type into the chat box and I'll just read out some of the answers. So I've got harder to concentrate, lower motivation to go out. Some people are baking more than usual because they're home more. So noticing a change in more home-based activities, spending more time alone, finding it harder to connect with others, finding your schedule's been disrupted, limited environments that we can access. I find that so much myself too. Harder to socialize with friends, limited opportunities to secure babysitting. Yeah, for people with children, that's a big change for sure. Some people are saying it's made them more creative in the activities that they're choosing. Not socializing as much, less interactive. Increased connection with friends from afar due to virtual platforms. Not able to visit family out of the province. I'm having that same experience. Loss of routine, more time to work on crafts, more time spent on my devices. Yeah, this is really good feedback, you guys. And we're hearing this from all the people that we run Wellness Exchange with every week as well. We really are all experiencing occupational disruption right now in terms of our routines, the environments that we can go to, the people that we can see, how we interact with people. You know, so it's a time to be thinking about positive activities and how can we get creative in changing the things that we're doing. And if things that we used to be able to do aren't available, how can we develop new routines, right? So I know for myself, that's something I'm working on. It's really nice to hear from all of you what your experience has been as well. So thank you for that. So we'll just move on to the next part here. So next we're going to talk about why positive activities are helpful. And I know Martin already went over this so well in the first part of the presentation. Many of you will be familiar with this triangle. It's the thoughts, feelings, behaviors triangle. And really it just illustrates how all three of those points are connected. So when it comes to talking about positive activities, it's focusing on that behaviors part of the triangle in terms of how what we do affects how we think and what we feel. You know, so you guys all gave great examples of things that you're doing, positive activities for you that perhaps have a positive impact on your feelings or a positive impact on your thoughts. That kind of then create that upward arrow that Martin talked about, where you know, the more that you're able to have that reinforcement of those positive experiences in terms of feelings and thoughts as related to the activity you've done, the more motivation you feel to continue on doing it. So this slide is really just to illustrate that. And I think you're likely all pretty familiar with that concept. Now this part is more interesting to talk about. So when are positive activities most helpful? So, you know, when is it most important that we focus on doing them? And if you guys could just type some ideas into the chat box, I'll read them out the best I can. So I have somebody here saying when we're at our lowest. Oh gosh, they come in so fast. Okay, I'm going to do my best to get them here. When feeling low energy, when my resilience is low, when I'm feeling stressed, when we are feeling bored or low energy, when we don't feel like doing anything, when we're overwhelmed, when I'm stressed. Yeah. Oh, I've got always, not just when we're at our lowest. That's nice too. All the time, especially during the pandemic. Some can be done for maintenance or mood. Others may be used as reactive intervention when we need them the most. That's nice feedback. When we can set a new habit pattern and to start your day to build motivation. Nice. I know there's a lot of comments there. I'm not able to read out every one of them, but I think you guys get the gist. It's, of course it's important to have plans and routines to do them all the time, but it's especially important to do them when we're feeling at our lowest and when we least feel like doing them. And this has really applied to me during the pandemic. I'm sure many of you too have had this experience where, we are just feeling lower energy right now. We are having lower levels of motivation, and doing those positive activities is so important right now to try to maintain our mood, right? And it also very much relates to depression, like Martin talked about. So when we're noticing we have lower levels of pleasure, lower levels of enjoyment in our life, and maybe that's related to something like depression. That's when positive activities are so important, to try to feel those sparks of enjoyment, because we need those. And the more we can feel them, the more we can focus on that reinforcing experience, the more we can start to build that upward arrow that Martin discussed. So thank you guys so much for your feedback there. All right, so we're going to get into our positive activities worksheet. I am watching the time here. I want to make sure we have time for questions at the end. But you guys should all have a copy of this. I realized that we didn't talk about the pleasant activities, activity ideas handout, but that's there for you if you want to look at it for some ideas. But this worksheet, these are the steps you're going to do. So brainstorm some positive activities that you might like to do. Consider the pros and cons of those activities. Choose activities that you can do over the next week. Schedule it into your calendar and prepare any resources that are needed. So I'm just going to quickly go through each of these steps while I'm talking. You can start to fill out that worksheet for yourself. So first is brainstorming, and I mentioned that pleasant and activities list handout. So select the things that you think you could realistically do over the next week, given your energy levels, given the pandemic, given, restrictions on what we can do or can't do these days, whether you can get childcare, all of those things that have an impact. What do you think as a list of things that you could potentially consider doing? So maybe write those down. Again, here's just some of those things from that pleasant activities list. These are ones that we selected that we thought would be more accessible to people, maybe who are isolated or, experiencing effects of the pandemic. And then step 2 is considering the pros and cons. How does the activity benefit me? Are there any consequences? What is the level of risk involved? And what might get in the way? So we focus on this in Wellness Exchange as a way to kind of help people choose what activities they do want to plan to do. We do work with lots of people who are using substances or have issues with addiction. And so that's kind of often part of this conversation is, some activities are positive in some ways and they might have consequences or negative effects in other ways. So just consider for yourself, what are the pros and cons? Which ones seem to have more pros for you when you consider all the factors for this week? And then step 3 is choosing those activities. So we encourage people to choose 2 or 3 that would be most helpful to you this week, given the pros and cons, depending on where you're at with your energy levels and your time. Maybe it's just one, just, consider what's realistic for you. But if you're looking for some occupational balance, maybe consider one activity that's made you feel better in the past, one activity you can do by yourself, one activity you can do with others or for others in a form of contribution. And often those contribution activities have the biggest impact on improving our mood. So it's definitely something to consider. Step 4, of course, is scheduling the activities in. This is where our SMART goals often come in. So being really specific, when are you going to do it? Choosing a day, choosing a time, maybe sandwich that activity in with something else you're already planning to do. That's a strategy that I often use. And just considering the overall balance of your week, when is it best going to fit in for you? And of course, be realistic. And step 5 is preparing the resources that are needed. So write down anything you need to get ready for the activity, prepare those things in advance. Preparation helps to ensure we can follow through. And if needed, even schedule in your preparation. So choose a day and a time this week when you're going to think about it, when you're going to get your running shoes and your gym bag together and put it by the front door, when you're going to make sure your friend's available for that phone call. Or whatever it is, make sure your laptop's charged for the Zoom call, things like that. And Martin already went over this, but we always go over SMART goals as well. So just making sure whatever your activity plan is this week, that you're putting it into a SMART goal. And Martin gave a really great example of trying to get a client to whittle that goal down to be more realistic. And I totally agree with Martin. That's a struggle that a lot of people I work with have, that kind of attainable or realistic part of the SMART goal. So finding a way to break it down. I'm not going to spend too much time on that because I think you guys are all probably pretty familiar with SMART goals. And I do want time for this part. I would love to hear from you guys. So you've had an opportunity to fill out that positive activities worksheet. And I want to know, what is your positive activity plan for the week? So if you could type that into the chat box, I'm going to do my best to keep up and read them out. I'd love to hear what you guys are planning to do. I've got bundle up and walk in the snow. Set aside time for baking and reading my book alongside my partner. Well, that sounds lovely. Hot tub and drinks with cohort friends. Oh, I want to do that. Plan a meal to cook with my daughter. Cross country ski on Sunday morning. A short walk after work each evening. Oh, I like that one because it's a daily plan and it builds routine. Go snowshoeing with the kids this weekend. Have a bath with scents. Sounds lovely. I feel good just reading about your activities. That's how powerful they are. Schedule in time for art making. Work out and visit father. Make time to connect with family. Unplug and start a new project. Preparations for my daughter's first birthday weekend. Oh, that's exciting. Congratulations. Continue to meditate, challenge myself to engage more in social activities, listen to podcasts and discuss with roommate. Nice. Hiking, bake with my kiddo, walking and working out for 30 minutes minimum each morning before work. Dance class in person, have to leave, or oh, never mind. Restart my yoga practice every evening before bed. That's another great one for building healthy routine. Forest bathing and yoga with my wife on Saturday. That's lovely. I've heard about forest bathing. That sounds really interesting. Spending time in nature and doing more language lessons. Great. And so, I know you're probably not writing all of the details into the chat box here, you guys, but do consider that SMART goal just to support yourself in doing these activities. I do have a couple of examples actually of SMART goals. I'm just going to read out because I can. So on Monday night after dinner, I will spend 30 minutes alone writing in my journal. So specific, you know exactly what you're going to do, measurable, because I'm going to do it for 30 minutes. Attainable, something that I feel that I can do. Is it relevant to my overall goals? Yes. Timely, because I'm doing it on Monday night after dinner. Another example, on Wednesday night after dinner, I will do the 30-minute YouTube exercise video my friend recommended. That one sounds good to me. And last example, on Saturday afternoon, I will have a video call with my sister to get emotional support. So just remember those SMART goals, being specific about when and how and with who, and that really does support us to get the goal done for sure. All right. Well, I think that's all that I have for this positive activities module, but I do want to let you guys know just more so about Wellness Exchange. So if you are interested in Wellness Exchange, if you know any clients who are interested in Wellness Exchange, there's an email address that anybody can email to basically sign up. So it's ahswellnessexchange@albertahealthservices.ca. So basically, if you send an email to that address, then your email will be added to a mailing list. And then every week you'll get the Zoom link to join in. And so no pressure to come. It's just there for anybody who's interested. So in case you were interested in learning about the other topics, there it is. You could join us. But also, if you're interested in becoming a Wellness Exchange group facilitator, the AHS provincial health promotion folks are going to be taking over doing that training. And so that's what their email address is on the slide at the bottom there. So if you wanted to inquire about any upcoming trainings to become a Wellness Exchange facilitator, to be able to use the slides and run it online or in person with your client populations, that would be the contact email for you to inquire about that. So thank you guys so much for allowing me to come and talk about Wellness Exchange. And I guess maybe, Martin, do we open it up to questions now?
Yes, we have a couple in the chat. I'm not sure if we get rid of the presentation now.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Now they're really going faster in the chat. Where are we at? There we are. You can probably see them now. What time are the group sessions again?
For Wellness Exchange, so they're on Wednesday mornings from 10:30 to 11:30 a.m. That's when we're running.
There's one just above it as well. Do you need to be an AHS employee to offer to be a group facilitator?
No, you don't. So we've actually worked with nonprofit organizations outside of AHS to help them to become facilitators of Wellness Exchange. So it's definitely something that I think any organization could benefit from using, because it's health promotion material. It's not mental health treatment. So it's really, it'd be great for anybody outside of AHS that is interested.
And certainly we're open to any questions that you have, both Wellness Exchange and behavioral activation, although I completely understand why people are very excited about the groups.
I have another question I see. Is training open to non-Alberta staff? That's a good question. I don't know about that, because the AHS, health promotions folks, I think they would be more so targeting people in Alberta. But you could certainly send an email to the address and just inquire about that. And another question, Devin, how did the group change when you went virtual? Were your clients facing homelessness, able to find ways to attend? And if so, how? Or did the demographic of the group change? That's a great question, Andrew. And yes, it absolutely changed who attended. That's one really unfortunate impact of the pandemic we've found. So our usual clients who were accessing Wellness Exchange have not been able to access it. So it's something that we really want to address, and we're just kind of waiting for a time when we're able to run groups in person again to get those folks to be able to participate. But we do our best. So I mean, we have the phone in option for people that want to phone in and try it. We print out all the materials for them, so they don't necessarily need a computer. But a lot of our folks don't have phones either. So it is a challenge.
There's a couple more questions.
Can you speak to how the term Wellness Exchange came to be? You know what, it was created before my time. So that's actually not a question that I can answer. Somehow they came up with it between my program and health promotions. I wish I had a better answer for that one. I don't. Have you ever used the Wellness Exchange program with kids? So we haven't been using it with kids. I do know that there is a version of Wellness Exchange meant for children. There are, specific handouts designed for use with children. So the best people to ask about that would be those health promotion folks at the email address that I had put on the slide. You know a bit about that, Martin, right?
I'm just aware because someone was presenting about that, about using it with kids, but I haven't myself. We have just scheduled our first set of Wellness Exchange groups, so we'll start in November.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Are you doing it online?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Behavioral activation motivation tips to get a client started. It's interesting. It's one of those things where there's lots of different ways that one can tackle behavioral activation. And so sometimes you're going to use this very psychoeducational sort of approach of kind of giving people lots of information, but sometimes you're really not. You're really going to focus much more on kind of a recovery orientation, like, so, what would a good day look like? What would a good, and from that, help them to build a goal for, like, so some people will want to know all of the behavioral activation information. For folks who are perhaps less well in particular, I don't go that route. I tend to focus a lot more just on recovery language. So what is something we could add into your life that you would know would mean that your life was getting better?
And I think finding ways to support them to start as small as possible is a helpful strategy, because folks are often so hard on themselves and they want to jump right back into all the things they were doing when they were well. So just breaking it down further. Might even just be getting out of bed.
We love action over inertia. One of the difficult things for action over inertia is that it doesn't have a strong enough evidence base for the treatment of depression. And we would like it to, so what I envision for generations that are younger than myself is that we're going to start seeing, as the occupational therapists recognize that these other people have been doing research on occupation-based practice for quite a while, that we should be doing a bit more around particularly these very basic things like anxiety and depression that we see in every client group that occupational therapy serves. So yes, we love action over inertia. We should have better evidence for use with depression. There was another intervention actually, which was occupational performance coaching. And we were very hopeful that Ottawa was going to demonstrate in their work with stroke patients that it was an effective treatment for depression, and they were not successful. And my suspicion is that we need to be very focused on what it is we are doing around improving mood or decreasing anxiety, or however we are using our activity analysis, and just be very focused on how we do that in order to get those larger effect sizes that will give us the research support that we need. I hope that answers your question.
I love action over inertia as well, and I definitely use the materials.
Well, I think we've done okay, Andrew. I was a little worried about how we would do this. Oh, sorry, there is another question. Any suggestions as to how people without homes, oh yes, could access computers to participate in Wellness Exchange? So what we're doing in Peace River, and this may be different places, but our library has established social distancing around this. And this was interesting. I've forgotten the lady who did the using Zoom, because it's a little bit contradictory to that. We're talking about a public space, but because it's a health promotion intervention, and we don't get into long conversations about people's personal circumstances necessarily, that's one of our thoughts. We haven't done it yet, so we're hopeful. So
Yeah, and I would say,
providers.
I mean, if the person has a smartphone or even just access to a landline, they could participate, as long as somebody is able to print out the materials for them. So it's better to have the visuals, of course, but we do our best when we run Wellness Exchange to say everything, out loud that's on the slides as well, because we know some people might be calling in without having the visuals. So that's the way we're trying to be more inclusive. I had a thought, Martin, when you were talking about, rating the mood and how important it is to notice the changes in mood as response to the activities that you're doing. So, the positive activities module doesn't make any reference to that, but I feel like, if you were using, those materials with a client, you could certainly add that in, even just put a section there on the worksheet around, what was your mood before you did your planned activity? What was your mood after? Just add in that tracking piece, because I do agree that's the part we need to encourage people to keep noticing.
Yes, and we haven't talked about like anxiety, but it's kind of the same. You need to rate, like, does doing the yoga decrease your distress? And if it doesn't, then you need to modify the yoga. I say that yoga because I know that the yoga authority is in the audience. I apologize because I know nothing really about yoga.
I know that I like it. That's about all I know.
So yes. It looks like the questions have finished and we're probably coming up towards the end of the hour. Any suggestions, Andrew?
I see he's just saying we can wrap up. Well, thank you guys so much for having us and letting me talk about Wellness Exchange, and Martin for your wonderful presentation about depression and behavior activation.
Thank you, Deb. I was so excited when I saw Wellness Exchange because I was in the middle of that, like finding resources for therapists. And I was like, this is such a great resource and I really want people to know about it. So I'm sure we're going to call upon yourself and the provincial mental health promotion folks to support OTs in learning more about Wellness Exchange and delivering it or engaging their clients in it more. So thank you, and thanks to everyone who joined today. I have to say that I found it a bit daunting when I heard how many people were registered. So thank you for being a wonderful audience and very gentle with us. So I think we're wrapping up. So thank you all, and we'll probably sign off now. Is that the right answer, Andrew? Do we just say goodbye?